This What's Working with Cam Marston podcast is brought to you courtesy of Michelob Ultra Beer.
They say consistency is the key to success. They weren't wrong. So how about grabbing a beer that's consistently smooth, consistently refreshing, and consistently light? You might just find that the road to success can be pretty enjoyable. Michelob Ultra, the perfect balance of taste and refreshment, and only 2.6 carbs and 95 calories. It's only worth it if you enjoy it. Enjoy responsibly. Anheuser-Busch Michelob Ultra Light Beer, St. Louis, Missouri.
Welcome, everyone, to another episode of What's Working. I'm Cam Marston. What's Working is the show designed to bring to you workplace, workforce, and marketplace trends. We find the guests that can talk about trends shaping the workplace, the workforce, and the marketplace around us. And always looking for somebody with a different story to tell. And gratefully, I'm grateful that there are so many of them out there. Recently on this show, been bringing you, before I go any further, What's Working is brought to you by the Alabama Center for Real Estate, housed in the Culverhouse College of Business, all housed at the University of Alabama. Very grateful for their title sponsorship. Always will be. Anyway, have been bringing some very non-traditional content to the show recently. You may remember Eunice Mingo talking about her perspective on the world during this times of violence. It was very interesting. We're going a completely different direction again today, and this one is kind of landed in my lap. So I've been invited to be an MC at an upcoming conference in Charleston. And when I was given the list of speakers that I needed to reach out to in advance of the event to introduce myself and talk about the event and what we plan to do and how I could help them, one of them was Bello Nock. Bello Nock is a performer. He calls himself a daredevil clown. He's a performer. And I thought, this is fantastic. Well, he's going to give a presentation. He's going to perform at this event in Charleston. And the next day, my job as the MC is to interview him about his business and his world and his life and things of that nature. So I reached out in an email. Turns out Bello is performing at the Beau Rivage in Biloxi, not far from here in Mobile at all. So I introduced myself and said, how about I come over for lunch one day? We could talk about this interview. He replied, how about you come over one evening, see the show, and we'll have breakfast the next day and talk about the interview. And I took him up on it. My wife and I went to Biloxi. We watched his show, loved it, had breakfast with him the next day, and really liked the guy. On top of being a remarkable performer, he's a very nice and generous fella. You're going to love him. And when we come back from break, you're going to hear about he's seventh generation performer out of Switzerland. His parents were doing it. His children are doing it. His world is this thing. And it's amazing the world that he sees and lives in and functions in as a circus type performer. He's got 5 troupes moving across the nation at any given moment, one of which is headed by his daughter, who is actually in residence doing these performances in SeaWorld in San Diego. It's really pretty cool. And breakfast revealed all this when he and my wife sat down and had breakfast, the depths and the interest. And I immediately said, Bello, you need to be on my radio show, my friend. If there's anything I can do to convince you to do this, I'd like to try. And today he will be with us as we come back from break. Bello Nock. He's the only guest that's on my show that's in the Guinness Book of World Records. 5 million people have seen him perform, something like this. And one of my favorite accolades of his, the greatest athlete to ever set foot in the world's most famous arena, otherwise known as Madison Square Garden. The greatest athlete to ever perform in Madison Square Garden. Considering the athletes that have performed in there, it's high accolades. When we come back from break, Bello Nock. Important for me to remind you that the book, What Works? The 10 best ideas from the first 200 episodes is now available on Amazon. Go to Amazon.com, enter my name. You'll find that book along with other books, but you'll find that book. It's brand new. If you want to get a glimpse of what the book reads and feels like, email me, cam@cammarston.com and put chapter 1 in the subject line. I'll send you the chapter. Before we go to break, we need to talk about the professionals at Sandifer Wealth Management and the value I place and they place in the designation of the CFP. Let me read this. Not all advisors are held to the same standards. A fiduciary duty is the highest standard of care under the law. Only registered investment advisors always have a fiduciary duty to act in your best interest. Jamie Sandifer, Mark Salyers of Sandifer Wealth Management act as fiduciaries to all clients at all times. I'm a big fan of the CFP designation, and I understand some of the rigors it takes to get that designation. It's worth you asking to make sure your advisor has that designation. If they don't, find one that does. Jamie and Mark at Sandifer Wealth Management here in Mobile can help you out. They can help you wherever you are in the state. When we come back from break, Bello Nock, Daredevil Clown. You're listening to What's Working. I'm Cam Marston. What's Working is brought to you by the Alabama Center for Real Estate at the Culver House College of Business at the University of Alabama. Roll Tide. The Alabama Center for Real Estate, better known as ACRE, housed at the University of Alabama's Culver House College of Business, is committed to industry engagement and dedicated to shaping the future of real estate through excellence in teaching, research, and service to drive economic and workforce development in Alabama. ACRE and Alabama, a championship collaboration. Learn more at www.acre.culverhouse.ua.edu. We're back. You're listening to What's Working. I'm Cam Marston. What's Working is brought to you by the Alabama Center for Real Estate, housed in the Culver House College of Business, all housed at the University of Alabama. On the phone with me is my new friend, Bello Nock. Bello and I sat down and had breakfast, maybe it was a week ago, at the Beau Rivage, where he told me a little bit about his background and his career and the family legacy behind it. Bello and I will be on stage together in about a week from now, where I'm emceeing an event, and Bello will be one of my guests that I'll interview on stage. So therefore, this is a warm-up. Bello, thank you so much for your time. Welcome to What's Working.
Thank you. My pleasure to be here.
I'm glad to have you. It was a wonderful breakfast that you and I had to hear the world that you live in. It's so very different from anything that I know. And I want to begin by telling the guests, or asking you to tell my listeners rather, a little bit about the family history that goes back to Switzerland's famous Circus Nock in the 18th century. Start from there, if you will.
Yep. Before we go way back, let me tell people, you may remember me or know me from America's Got Talent, the cannon shot over the helicopter, and 8 years with Ringling Brothers, 11 million people, live audience just in that time zone, and have been performing since I was a little kid. So how does one get to climb things, walk across high wires, across buildings, and get shot out of a cannon? I'm a 7th generation performer from both sides of my family. My mother, the theater, drama, Italian side, 6 generations to my mother. I'm the 7th. And then on my dad's side, they were more the daredevils, thrill seekers, and wire walkers. And they came to America in 1954. They met each other working on Ringling Brothers. And a couple of wink later, 3 kids later, I'm number 4. And it's a funny legacy, because it's rare that someone, we all have our generations, so we all can trace our lineage, but tracing their lineage back in the same industry, and then even more unique, both families in the same industry of live entertainment. My family's history dates back to 1772 in Switzerland as entertainers. In 1840, they founded their own circus, Circus Nock. It's the Swiss National Circus. One of Charlie Chaplin's sons, Eugene Chaplin, is the artistic director of the show. It only travels Switzerland. But it was funny. My parents came to America for one season in 1954, and here all these years later, kids, grandkids, and now great-grandkids are now performing in live entertainment here in America. And it has reached and spawned where family members have moved to Australia, back to Europe, to Asia, to Japan, and made roots there, all in live entertainment.
It's really a fascinating story, Bello. No one ever, if I had read this in a book, I would say this is fiction. There's no way this happens, but it's truth being stranger than fiction. It's remarkable that your parents were both performers, met each other, and it's also remarkable that the lineage continues. I guess as a child, you had no choice. Your first memory may be you were on you were 3 years old or 1 year old taking your first steps, but they weren't normal first steps because you were 60 feet in the air on a high wire as a 1 year old.
Well, yeah, you would think, right? So my parents never forced me or my brothers to follow in the family footsteps. They never gave us the pressure. They just said that we had to try it for 30 or 40 years. After that, you're free to make any choice and decision you want. You know what? The truth of it, Cam, is I'm the youngest of four, and my three brothers are in the business. They all have hobbies and passions outside the business.
Yeah.
So mine, I can tell you, everything I have, every hobby is based around some form of entertainment. Everyone's got a really cool car, right? If you make it in life, you're like, what kind of car do you have? Is it as big as a Lamborghini, a Ferrari? Do you have Aston Martin, or do you just have the nice Porsche SUV? I own a Batmobile, a 1966 Batmobile.
Really?
And yeah, and I mean, it's got how do you say it? It gets in a showroom where other people can enjoy it more than I drive it, but it's all based around being able to bring a smile to someone's face.
Entertainment.
If I can fund my pleasures with other people enjoying them, all my wants and needs, and sharing them with the world, that's where I'm happy. You know how many people have a garage, and it could be like a building full, right? Climate controlled, air conditioned, my car museum, and no one ever gets to see it.
Yeah. Yeah. So your hobbies, that's interesting, are all about bringing smiles to people's faces. Your hobbies are about entertainment. When did you know, Bello, as a child, that, you made a wonderful joke about your parents said you can try this for 30 or 40 years, which, by the way, I will steal and utilize before the end of the day. I can promise you that. I love that much. When did you know that this was for you? When did you realize this? So many of my listeners, let me tell you about my listeners. We talked about this before we turned on the recording, but I want to mention it again. They're mid-40s and older, and usually in influencer positions in their business. And we have a lot of family businesses that listen. We have a lot of second and third generation. You're seventh, maybe eighth generation.
Yeah.
When did you know this is what you want to do? Because I'm sure there are listeners out there going, I'm in a family business and I'm still not sure this is what I want to do. When did you choose this path? So,
great question. I didn't realize it until I heard my daughter, my youngest daughter, who is an entertainer, who now has her own show at SeaWorld of San Diego. And not only just an entertainer, she does 3 30-minute shows a day, packed with acts that usually people can only do one of them a day, not even the whole show. But she's the me of, she says, I never knew a time when I didn't. I just, as a kid, I saw myself up there. I didn't have the ability. I just knew that I'm going to do that someday. And why not? Now, she's got it even harder. Here, I guess I'm going to dote on her for a second.
Sure.
But she followed in her dad's footsteps. And she's the youngest of 3 kids, but I have 6 kids. I have 3 adopted kids. The 3 adopted kids are in the industry, but they came to it by choice When we went to the adoption agency, they asked us what did we want, and I just said I need to measure the kid if he fits inside the human canon. No, okay. I'll get serious here for a second. So three adopted kids, and 3 of our kids been happily married 36 years, and we started very, very young. I'm only 53, and that daughter said, I never knew a time when I didn't. And I realized I saw myself at 3 years old. My parents were on a TV show, and, the Mike Douglas show, Johnny Carson show, they were on, and I was hanging around. I mean, I was not old enough to go to school where they didn't leave me home, so I took me with them, and my brothers stayed at home going to school. And I was hanging around, and Johnny Carson said whose kid is this and what's going on? And I said to him at 4 years old, sir, I'm the featured performer. And he goes, you? Yes, we're the Nerveless Knocks, and I climb up there. I just don't do it yet. And so time is, I saw, when someone says, I'm sure people, if you can visualize it, you can do it. You visualize the field goal, the touchdown, the hole in one. I just knew that's what I was going to do in life, but I was also going to be successful. I have 2 photos of me that are prized possessions in our family. We were home in our winter quarters in Sarasota, Florida. We were 3 months from any performance. I am maybe 6 years old. I'm in a clown costume, and my brothers we're all playing in the backyard. They're all in just regular, clothes. They're all giggling because I am in a full-fledged clown outfit. Now, if you look at the clown outfit, you go, what is wrong with you? I went and made myself up. I had seen the billboard of Circus, which was prime at that time, right? I was born in 68. So this might have been 73, 74. I was made up exactly like the billboard of the clown at Circus. Yeah. Now, I just saw myself. I got to get ready because I never know when the curtain's going to open and they're going to hire me. And I just saw that.
It sounds like, Bello, you couldn't not do it. It was some sort of your DNA was enacting and saying, this, my friend, is who you're going to be. You really don't have any control of this.
Yeah, that's true. Now,
hang on. We need to go to break. I need to go to break. And when we come back, we'll pick it up right here. I also want to talk about the fact that a little bit about your stunts, and what I found interesting is that all the materials that I saw on the stage at the Beau Rivage, you build yourself, which is another skill as well. Let's get into that when we come back. I'm on the line with Bello Nock. Bello is performing at the Beau Rivage down in South Mississippi in Biloxi, and saw the show last week, loved it, had breakfast with Bello the next day. My wife and I did, and thrilled to have him on the show. We'll be back after this break. You're listening to What's Working. I'm Cam Marston. What's Working is brought to you by the Alabama Center for Real Estate at the Culverhouse College of Business, all housed at the University of Alabama. Sitting with Cajun Mike, owner E3 Termite and Pest Control. Cajun Mike, there are people I know that think their house is fully protected because there's some bait stations around the house. What's your thoughts?
My thought personally is bait stations do work. However, I do not believe in them as a standalone product.
What else do they need?
We do 3, 4, sometimes 5 or 6 treatments on a house. We will do a true liquid perimeter treatment. We do hollow void treatments, and we use bore care on wood when we can access it.
It's a thorough treatment, top to bottom, it sounds like, much more so than the bait station.
That is correct.
How do they find you, Cajun Mike?
They can find me at 251-850-PEST or e3pest.com.
e3pest.com. Customer service never goes out of style. In fact, I think it's safe to say that customer service is more valuable and more important now more than ever. Hi, this is Cam Marston. One thing that my over 200 episodes of What's Working has taught me is how important customer service is to building and maintaining a thriving business. It's the growing need for customer service that's led me to partner with one of the state's leading customer service trainers to create our program called Delivering 5-Star Customer Service. Your team will get one 90-minute training session per month for 6 consecutive months. Each session builds on the skills learned the previous month, allowing your customer-facing teams to practice before moving on to the next lesson. And the 6 lessons address everything from appearance to electronic communications to conflict resolution to maintaining a service mindset. Our program travels and is delivered in person at your workplace, nothing virtual. You simply can't practice the level of the skills this course teaches virtually. For more information, email me, cam@cammarston.com, and let's schedule a time to talk. Remember, you have less to fear from outside competition than you do from discourtesy and bad service from inside your own company. Again, email me, cam@cammarston.com, and let's talk about your business. Bello Nock is on the line with me. He's performing at the Beau Rivage in Biloxi, Mississippi for a while. I attended his show last week and am grateful to have him on the air. He and I will be at an event next week in Charleston, South Carolina, while I'll be interviewing him on the stage. And this is somewhat of a warm-up of the interview, and delighted to get him on the line. You're listening to What's Working. I'm Cam Marston. What's Working is brought to you by the Alabama Center for Real Estate, housed at the Culver House College of Business at the University of Alabama. Bello, you told me when we had breakfast last week that all the materials I saw on the stage, the giant circle thing, I know there's a name for it, that spins up and down, your high wire rack that wheeled out and then wheeled back, you manufacture all those things. You make them to your standards, which means you need to know how to weld. You need to know how to put things together. Tell me when you decided that manufacturing all these things yourself was the right thing to do versus contracting them out.
Yeah, I'll tell you when you decided, when you want to do something like that and you're a daredevil and you want to do that, you can't go to your local hardware store and say, "Sir, I want a wheel of death. I want a globe of death. I want a human cannon." Nobody builds that stuff.
Right.
Nobody wants the liability, even though things come from, everything is, it's not the topic that's going to cause harm or injury if it's created correctly. So here's what happens for your listeners. I'm the guy if you know me by name, you may know me not by name, but by visual. I'm the guy with the foot-tall orange hair.
Yes.
Ringling America's Got Talent and live shows around the world. When you're immersed in something, you love it. I've heard this. They said billionaires are different than artists. Artists create something and then have to do the second job of convincing other people you want what they created. Billionaires find what people want and need and give them that. The difference is billionaires need to go find a hobby, and they usually have nothing to do with what their job is, what their passion is. Mine is direct opposite. I enjoy what I do so much that you just gain all this knowledge, and it's field experience. And like I will tell you, I'm not the greatest welder in the world because that's not what I do. I'll hire the greatest welder. I'm a great fabricator. I'm an engineer. I'm a designer, an acrobatic rigging designer. Now, when I just said the words, I'm an engineer. I don't have a degree in that. In fact, I'm illiterate in 6 languages. But you drop me in any country and I will be able to get you to where we need to go, and we'll be able to eat stuff like that. That's where so the artisans of my mom's side, the Italian side, Swiss side, dad neutral, just think about those. And a life of, you just learn how to do these things. And one is I never take offense, and I never take what's not mine. And if you live by those things, you never say, "Oh, I'm in charge here," or "Hey, I'm the boss." If someone knows more and you hired them, never worry about being the smartest guy in the room. Learn from it and be the smartest guy in the next room. My dad used to tell me this. He said, "Bello, no matter where you go, there's an idiot in every room. Cam, I can never find him."
Oh, refreshing interview. I was telling Bello that my previous interview was with a Navy SEAL, brilliant guy. There were zero laughs, and I can't stop smiling. And it's wonderful.
Here's what I find funny, Cam. A Navy SEAL, you would think right away, every topic is life or death.
Yeah.
And it's the same in my field. You don't get inside the cannon and say, I hope I hit the target, because if you don't, it's irrelevant. I mean, hitting the target is hard enough. Like when you land perfect dead center in the target, the landing is 9 G's on impact. It's only 7 G's on takeoff. So just imagine that. So even when you make it in a human cannonball, it's like 2 car crashes 6 seconds apart, but you know they're happening.
Yeah, yeah. Tell me this, Bello. Let me ask you about risk. You talked about the high wire acts, cannons, wheels of death, things of this nature. Risk is inherent in what you do. No one would pay to come and sit in the audience and watch someone do something like what you proclaim to do if it weren't risky. It's they're watching that risk that gives them the thrills. And there's the entertainment, the acts, and the things of that nature, which were so funny, by the way. But the risk is what I think, makes people shriek and scream. And when I watched you on America's Got Talent, I watched all those celebrities kind of flinch when you did all these things. How do you evaluate the risk you're about to take to make sure you can do it first, and second, it's going to thrill the audience? Is that how do you work that equation?
I was very, very young. 4 brothers, and 1 brother older than me had natural ability better. Obviously, he's older, he's going to be better. So he could balance on 1 hand for 3 minutes. My next brother could balance for 1 minute. My next brother could balance in 1 hand, 30 seconds, and he'd put a hand down and go back. And I could only do a handstand. I might have been 7 or 8 years old. And I lifted 1 hand to see, just to be like them. I lifted it and I fell over like a cut tree. And I said, Dad, I did it. I did a 1-arm handstand. I held it for 6 seconds maybe, right? My dad looked at me and he said, great. Can you do it 3 times on Saturday? That in our world is you don't talk about, you don't tote, you can do something and you can do until you can do it 100 times in a row. Perfect. Being 1 in a row is only lucky, right? Having someone, if you were a rock band and you had a 1-hit wonder, you're like, great, that's awesome. Follow up. Right. And so in that, no one is ever born in our industry or in life with better, it's not like say, hey, your parents were wire walkers. You're now going to walk the wire and you're going to do it climbing out of the crib. It's a passion. It's how quick can you adjust left or right. And that's in business also, because very important. People, I think a good friend of mine named Cam Marston said, what are you, more business or more performer? And I think I'm a balance of the two, because it is show business, and business is a larger part of the word. But if you have no show, you have no business. If you don't have any business, you have no show. Yeah. So it takes both. Now, I'm not sure if people know this, but you manage or you have influence over, is it 4 or 5 troupes across the nation that are moving from place to place? This is including your daughter who's in SeaWorld San Diego. So when you go to the Beau Rivage and see your show, you're one of 4 or 5 others out there underneath your brand doing the same thing? Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
So your business includes managing a lot of different people, some of which I learned after sticking around after your show to talk to you are, immigrants or don't speak English. Tell me what that's like.
Well, the circus and entertainment is made up of the exotics from around the world. And we have a lot of people that travel. Everyone wants to come to America. And so you get people, and there's a lot of Americans in other countries. But you travel and then it resonates. So we have a lot there's Cuban, but he's been here 20 some years. Colombian, Brazilian, they've been here almost their entire life. Russian, Ukrainian, Mongolian, Kazakhstan, and we've got more. We've got even people from Florida, which is like another country.
Floridians are the ones that worry me the most. All those others are somewhat predictable. It's the Floridians that you got to keep an eye on.
Wait a minute, I'm Floridian.
That's right. You're going to check their papers first.
You know what happens is you start, here's what happens in business, okay? Sometimes this was the greatest thing about COVID, is it either made you think on your toes, think outside the box, but it also made people evaluate, why was I on that treadmill that I created?
Right.
Sometimes we buy ourselves a job. I'm going to share with you one of the worst things in business that could ever happen to someone. What's the worst thing that could ever happen to someone in business?
Bello, I don't know what it is, but you've got to tell us in a minute and 30 seconds.
Yep. It's not bankruptcy, because then you'd move on to the next thing. It's breaking even, because you can break even for 10 years in a row and not know it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so in our business, I have 53 years old, not a broken bone in my body, never had a failure. But I train people, and all the work goes into prep. People will say to us in good luck. And there's no such thing as luck. It's preparation meets opportunity.
Yeah. Yeah. So when we were talking about risk a moment ago, how do you think of a new act? How do you think of something new to provide to the audience that is an equal measurement of risk and predictability?
Yep. Every person who's a buyer, so not the person who buys the ticket, but the person who's going to hire you, the audience of one, I like to call it, the most important person you'll ever work for is that person who's going to give you the space and say, okay, you go here, you can all hire the whole product. Everybody says, we want something new, but tell me what it's like.
Yeah.
And that's from William Morris to Live Nation to MGM. I don't care where it is. We want something new. Tell me what it's like. So you take old proven ideas and you put a new spin on it. Just think about it. We all listen to music. It used to be on a tape. Then it was on a cassette. Then it went to vinyl. Then it went to compact disc. Now it's digital and it flies through the air.
Yeah. Well, it's similar to an expression in my business. It's so much easier to find a new audience than it is to write a new speech. That's kind of what you're saying. It's so much easier to take a spin on an old act than to create something from the bones on up. Is that correct?
Yeah. But at the same time, you and I know that in our upbringing, you couldn't get to a city without seeing Fuji or Kodak billboards that were bigger than any building.
Yeah.
Now, if you told that to a kid, they'll ask you, what was that?
Right.
So you need to change with the times. You need to be relevant, and you need the kids to tug on mom and dad's shirt to say, I want that. Not just in circus, not just in entertainment, but in anything. You need to pinpoint, focus on who is your designated, not who do you want to sell to, not who has more money, but who's going to tug the shirt and say, because every little kid is, even the 45-year-old man who has to say, honey, I'd like that really nice $400 shirt.
Yeah.
I
want to go to the show. I want to go to the show. Bello.
You're right.
Bello Nock is an American daredevil clown and circus performer. I'm reading off of his Wikipedia page now. He's been listed in the Guinness Book of World Records for his high wire walk over a cruise ship. And I learned when I had breakfast with Bello that cruise ship was underway, meaning it was motioning, it was pitching and things like that. Pretty impressive. We'll come back after this break. Bello, I want to learn a little bit about the agreements that you make with these different venues and kind of how they're structured. That's interesting to me. We'll come back after this. Bello Nock is on the line with me. He's performing right now at the Beau Rivage in Biloxi. You're listening to What's Working. I'm Cam Marston. We'll be right back. The Alabama Center for Real Estate, known as ACRE, strives every day to be a valued resource that supports and promotes Alabama's real estate industry and promotes economic and workforce development across the great state of Alabama. ACRE and Alabama, a championship collaboration. Get to know ACRE and learn more about their offerings and their events at their website, www.acre.culverhouse.ua.edu. Bello Nock is on the line with me. His residence is Sarasota, Florida. However, he's on the move all over the country at any given moment. You're listening to What's Working. I'm Cam Marston. What's Working is brought to you by the Alabama Center for Real Estate, housed in the Culverhouse College of Business at the University of Alabama. Bello is a circus performer, a daredevil clown, as his bio says. Bello, I'm curious, when you go to the Beau Rivage, how long has the contract been in place before you arrive? This is not a spontaneous thing because you've got to move so much equipment there. How long does a typical engagement last? Are you at the Beau for a month, for 2 months, whatever? How many performances? Who owns the insurance for this? Can you give us some insight into how that might work?
I sure can. So the contract here at MGM, we've been doing this for with a partner for 20 years. We had the contract 1 year before COVID year. So we were planning. We did our sites, we had everything. And then COVID hits. And then they just rolled it over. They stuck with us and said, hey, when we come back, we just want to have you do this. We usually are here in the summers for about 12 weeks.
12 weeks.
12 weeks. Now, this summer, we're only here in Biloxi, Mississippi until June 23rd. We basically did about a 4 or 5 weeks run, but we're also going to play 3 other spots, MGM properties. So we're going to go to DC National Harbor, Springfield, and Atlantic City, Borgata. So here's some important things. Okay. So you say I take the credit like every good man does. Yes. I take this credit for all the successes. My wife, is the person who does all it's funny. As diverse as I am in entertainment, 12 different musical instruments, every stunt, I can coach someone, I can be laughed at, whatever. My wife is the silent weapon of our industry, and she does our legal, she books everyone's travel, she does the contract, she does everything. The hard thing is, at the end of the night, I can go do something and do a trick and get an applause. She never gets any applause. Anybody wants to just negotiate with her, like, oh, can we have it for $1 less? So one of the hard things was 1 year after someone else's doings, we used to have like a $5 million insurance policy that was only required based on our past successes. Okay. We have never had an accident or injury in performance in our company, never had a workers' comp claim, never, 30 years. So because other people in the same company, not our company, but working for MGM, had some accidents, there was a big issue out in Vegas. They just raised it, and we already had our contract, and they went around, hey, everyone, we're changing everyone to a $10 million liability.
Yeah.
I don't know if you know this, but getting a $1 million liability is, it's fairly easy. Getting a $3 million, you pay a little more money. Going to $5 million is huge. Going to $10 million, unheard of. Now you're talking to whole new people. Why we were able to do that is you go back to them and say, okay, we are using words, human canon, wheel of death, globe of death. That is what is advertised. It gets attention. It gets the insurance man firm doesn't want to hear that. What they want to hear is your record. They're humans too. They're like the IRS. Everyone's afraid of them. But if you go talk to them, they're people that have to pay their IRS bill too, right? So you go talk to them and say, here's my situation. Running away from them and not talking to them never helps. So you go to them and say, look, 1772, never had an accident all the way till now. Here's where some of the accidents or injuries in the entire entertainment industry happen. They're work-related industry accidents, not. So there's only been about 3 major accidents that were while someone was performing. One was on Ringling Brothers, one was on Cirque du Soleil, and one was in a theme park. But that was performance-based accidents. Now, work-related accident, that happens in any weld shop, any mechanic shop. It can happen in the print shop, right? It can happen in anybody's in a sewing factory. It doesn't matter. Your hotel room. Small little things like that, yeah, no problem. So you mitigate. You try to evaluate and mitigate we have a seminar that we teach that's called Safe Danger. A great friend, Dan Thurman, and I both do keynotes on it and go in, and instead of just speaking for an hour, we'll do a 2-day seminar and say, let's speak for an hour or two. Let's do a question and answer. And then let's do breakout rooms where we're available. So people who may not want to stand in a room and raise their hand, and because for fear of failure, they can come meet with us, and then we can say, what was the situation, even if it was someone else's. So we try to lend that and share what we know.
Yeah. I know Dan. That's a small world. I know Dan. I last saw him in D.C. He's a great keynoter. He's fantastic.
Unbelievable lifelong friend. Unbelievably great.
I like him a lot. So how far out do you book, Bello? Or if you were to look at your calendar right now, do you have a year's worth of work, 2 years worth of work? How does that look?
Yeah, we got smart because of getting it wrong so many times. Sometimes we would book so far out that you drop your guard, and sometimes you're silly enough that we at SeaWorld, we've created 4 different shows for them this summer, and then they came to us and said, hey, we have an impossible ask. Can you create one of the bigger shows in our bigger venue in 2 weeks? Well, because we have all of it, we're ready, again, being prepared. That's not always easy. We are able to do that. We'll probably start the show before the contract and the first payment's done. But you have a long history with them, and you know that. Now, after COVID, you're probably less likely to do something like that. It's all, again, those, if I told you the biggest risks in our industry is, did you quote it right? And are you going to, who knew last year that gas would be $6
a gallon?
A gallon, depending on where you live, right? It's $9 out in California. Well, if you would have bid that a year ago, 6 months ago, you wouldn't have received and then this year okay, you know what? Stick with it. It all balances out.
Let me ask you this. How does MGM measure your success? Is it by number of seats sold? Is it by the loudness of the applause? How do you seem to have a renewing contract with them. They obviously like you. What do they see that they like?
One of the first questions I ask anybody is, what is success to you? And if you can answer that, and sometimes it's multiple, but in any business, that's what you have to define, what is success. If you're chasing what someone else has, you're not ever going to find success, because they might be doing it for different than the success you see. So MGM is a casino. Casinos have a certain thought to it, right? And that is, it might be a smoky-filled room and you're going to gamble and they're going to take your money. They want to entertain you. They want to there's a beautiful mall in here, 6 different restaurants. They cater to the family also. So the theater, it's a family show. And when I say that, there was something that happened 20 years ago that was a terrible, and it happens a lot, translation of what someone said they wanted. Think about in Vegas, there used to be, in a way, topless shows. Well, you're not going to, if you go to the show when you're there on a business meeting, you're going to see, and that wasn't the only thing that was in the show, but there might have been. Well, if you went there on a family event, you're not going to sit there with your mother-in-law, your wife, and maybe your 18-year-old son or daughter, right? If they're old enough to get in. It's just, so someone came in and said, we need family entertainment. Well, someone translated that to getting kids shows, cartoon shows. And that is not, they don't want a 5-year-old there, right? They don't gamble. They don't come in. They're not going to spend money, not just gamble. So what we do is we bring in a show that the whole family can come and see. Everyone feels comfortable. 4 generations can laugh at the same joke, and 4 generations can ooh and ah over the same stunt. I think the show that you were at, there was a 100-year-old gap of our audience. We had a 104-year-old World War II. World War II D-Day, right?
Yeah.
And a 4-year-old kid in this, and everyone could laugh and enjoy and applaud. What we do brings families together. There is plenty. There's no shortage of things that brings family apart, that separates them.
So MGM wants you to create a show that will bring the family to the casino, buy a ticket, shop, eat. Maybe the adults will step aside if they can and gamble a little bit. But their measurement of success for you is, have you created a family show that is bringing families through the door? Is that correct?
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
That's exactly.
And they're monitoring that in some way or another. They're looking through the room. They're evaluating ticket sales. Maybe at some point they have to, the purchaser of the ticket has to enter the age of the ticket buyer. I don't know, but they're able to determine that is indeed happening. But very simply by stepping into the show as it starts to see who's in the room.
And then also just think about it. Who comes to the Beau Rivage? Mostly travel, foreign travel. And for years we sort of identified, you've got a community here, and that community doesn't have the money of people on vacation. They're here. You want them to come also. You don't want it to be look, if someone gets out of the plane and gets into a taxi, you want them to, they say, hey, what should I do? You want the locals to say, the taxi driver to say, you know what? Go see this, go here. That's everyone. You get a flat tire on the side of the road. You want them to say, take them to your shop. Hey, I'm looking for a lawyer. Whatever the business is, you want to be the fabric of the community.
Right. Right.
Not just call on someone. It's almost like religion. People call on God when they need him. They'll forget about him 300 days out of the year.
Yeah. Well, it was, I did, when I was sitting there, my wife and I commented to each other, look at the diversity in the room, both in ages and genders and ethnicities. You really had a remarkably diverse room. And that veteran, 104 years old, got the standing ovation he deserved. Good for you for calling him out. That was fantastic.
Thank you.
Yeah. Bello, I cannot wait to get on stage with you on Monday in Charleston. Between now and then, though, maybe somebody's looking for something to do this weekend. Tell them how much longer you're going to be at the Beau and what they can do to get tickets.
You bet. So it's the Beau Rivage, MGM Beau Rivage. The show is called Funambula. Funambula is the French word for wire walker. I'm a wire walker. But we put the fun in Fumbula. And we're here until June 23rd, 7 p.m. show every night. 3 o'clock matinees Saturday and Sunday. Tickets are super affordable. I think they start at like $12.95. Family 4-packs for $40. We want it to be affordable so the family there's no excuse to not come. 90-minute show, fun for the whole family, and it's not to be missed. If you saw this show anywhere else in the country, it would be $80 to $120.
I can vouch for the wonderfulness of the show. We enjoyed it. Thank you so much, Bello. I look forward to seeing you. Bello Nock on the phone with me. Again, Bello, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Bello Nock is, as he said, at the Beau Rivage through late June. Check him out. I'm sure you can go to the Beau Rivage website and find more information. When we come back, it'll be segment 5. We'll recap the show and talk to you about what you can expect going forward. Bello Nock, sure enjoyed it. Laughed a lot today. You're listening to What's Working. I'm Cam Marston. What's Working is brought to you by the Alabama Center for Real Estate at the Culverhouse College of Business, all housed at the University of Alabama. This is Cam Marston in the studio with Cajun Mike. Cajun Mike, what's going on at E3 Pest Control? What you guys doing today that's different?
Well, what we're doing different is we are treating homes that have spray foam installation, and we're able to give them a full bond, whereas other companies are not able to.
How does the treatment work with the spray foam?
Basically, we spray the spray foam with Bore Care. Bore Care absorbs into the spray foam. It prevents termites from landing on it and creating an above-ground carton.
Is there any restrictions or limits to how you can do this, or is it any home with spray foam?
Basically, any home with spray foam.
How do they find you, Cajun Mike?
Find me at 251-850-7378 or e3pest.com.
That's e3pest.com.
Hi, this is Edward Dismukes, and when I'm not selling quality grass-cutting machines to a discerning customer, I'm listening to What's Working with Cam Marston. Now back to the show.
There's no doubt that this show gives people an opportunity to promote what they do. That's not the purpose of the show, but if somebody's going to give me, and what you hear is about 35 minutes of their interview, but I tell them to budget an hour of their time. If somebody's going to give me an hour of their time, I want them to be able to talk a little bit about what they do in such a way that maybe you'll reach out to them. However, when Bello says his show is playing at the Beau Rivage, I want you to go to appreciate the depth of what he's done and what he's gotten into. You're going to see a wonderful, fun, daring, daredevil show with lots of acts. It's not just Bello. There's a bunch of different acts in there. And you will begin to appreciate what he has put together and what his siblings and his children are a part of now that you've heard this interview. It opened my eyes to a lot of things that now when I see Bello or speak to him or hear him perform, I realize there's a whole lot going on there. Well worth your time. I hope you'll do so. That'll wrap us up for this week, everybody. The show is brought to you courtesy of Alabama Center for Real Estate at the Culverhouse College of Business, University of Alabama. The producer is John Thompson with Eye on Digital. Hope you'll check him out if you need production work. And always try to find me on social media. I'm out there. We post the show. We talk about the show. You can find the podcast at whatsworkingcam.com. Have a good week, everybody.